Hi guys, as promised this is a video giving you guys some quick feedback so that you can get your final drafts of the argument papers done as soon as possible. Usually I like to give you guys a week to do final drafts, but we don't have a week, we only have until Tuesday at midnight to get this in. So if you had things you were confused about from my feedback, then this would be a time you'll be able to look at that. But first of all, I want to go over the plan for Monday. So I've gotten sick. I have COVID, so at the worst possible time. So we're not actually going to meet in person on Monday. I'll put this in the announcement. I'll make an announcement later as well for this. And if you don't read any of that, then you will see a sign on the door that says it, right? Monday we were going to do a final review and we were going to do a bunch of group work, but instead what I'm going to do is I'll just post another video later on with a review for the final exam, and if you're in the lab class, I'll make another little video covering the lab one as well. So we won't actually meet in person that day. If you want to come to campus and do something productive, if you have missing work, or you have things you need to work on your papers, that would be a really good time to go to the Writing Center, which is located in the library. Also, if you have questions on your feedback, that would be a good time to meet with me on Zoom. I'm going to try to make myself available on Zoom and post a link in the announcement that I make that day, and you'll be able to meet with me that way to try and make up for the extremely critical class that we're going to miss. I'm planning to be there Wednesday though, and we'll just we'll not get very close to each other. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the main issues that popped up over and over again. I'm not going to go over redundant stuff like fragments and sentence sprawls because we've already covered those, but I am really impressed at the improvement that you guys have made in those areas over the course of the semester. You guys are doing a lot better at that. Some issues specifically with this paper, and I guess probably also with the research paper. A lot of people had problems with their citations and their evidence that ended up costing them a lot of points. Most of the people that lost a lot of points on this paper after turning it in, it was because they either didn't turn in a paper that had citations inside the text, or they didn't have a works cited page, or both. They weren't using quotes correctly, or their citations didn't match. So I'm going to go through each one of those really quickly. First of all, just the basic concept of this. All of the papers the last two papers that we've been writing in here are research assignments. And that means that you need to go out and find articles and use those as support in your papers. And so, let's try to see an example of that here. This one is an example of, this is our paper, our sample paper that was about Studio Ghibli being better than Disney. You don't have to know what that means, but you do need to know what you're looking at here. Okay, come on, stop scrolling. So this is one way of citing a source. This is pointing out what somebody says in an article. She's saying, Sophie Breeze, who's the author of this article, says that says this about women in Studio Ghibli films, and then she has a direct quote. This is the actual words of this author that she has put into this paper. She's cited this source by telling us who the author is. That's all you really have to do. It would help if you told us also who this person is and what they were writing about or something like that. But as long as you've told us who the author is, that's a citation. If you don't want to actually state what the person's name is, then you can write an in-text citation which looks like this. This is the same person, and they've used Trisha Anderson here has used an in-text citation to cite this source. Here we have a couple of Hayao Miyazaki directed several Studio Ghibli movies, etc., etc., etc. This is all information that came from this same article that we just looked at. It's not quoted this time, it is paraphrased, which means she's cut it down and put it in her own words. And then she cited where that information came from by giving us the author's last name in parentheses. She's not going to give us the full name of the author. She's not going to give us also the date that it was published or the title and all of that sort of stuff. She has the last name of the author, and that's all that she needs here. So that's all that we're looking for this part. If she didn't have the author's name, then what she would write would be a short version of the title. And I don't know the title of this one, but let's make one up. Okay. So this wouldn't be the full title of this article. This would be a shortened version of the title that's designed to make it easier for the reader to look through this and then go down to the source in the bottom here and see which one of these we're talking about. That one's not down here because I made that one up and it's fake. But you can see Sophie Breeze is down here, which is the source that we were just looking at in two different places. This is one of the things that cost people a lot of points, is not having sources that matched. So let's reverse that. Okay. So if I'm reading through your paper and I see this last name here, I need to be able to go down to your works cited page and see the full citation here with all of the information that I need to find that article. And you can see Miss Anderson has all of that written out here. She has the author's name, she has the title of the article, film should be capitalized. She has where it was published, which is that journal. I don't know how to say that word. Whatever this word is. She has the date published, she has a hyperlink, and she should probably also have a date accessed, but we'll let it go. But I can tell from this where she got this information from. Also in there she has her other sources. I just saw this one. Let's see. Why We Think. This is a title in quotes, and if we scroll all the way down here, we can see the full title, Why We Think Studio Ghibli is Better Than Disney. This one doesn't have an author, it's just written probably by a bunch of different people. So instead of, since she doesn't have the author, she's going to give us a short version of the title, which was just this part. It needs to still be in quotes because it's an article title, and it needs to be in parentheses as well at the end of where all that information came from. So in-text citation needs to look kind of like this, or needs to look like the last name of the author, like this one, or it needs to straight up state who the person is that wrote it. The works cited citations at the end need to kind of look like these. These are all article titles. These are all different articles. So, authors' names, if there are one, titles of the article in quotes, where it came from in italics, the dates it was published, the hyperlink, and usually you would have a date accessed as well. And you need a whole list of these in alphabetical order that has each source that you used. If you used any source, even if it's really small, it needs to be in your works cited page, or it's going to be a bunch of points off. And I'm only taking those points off. I don't think that you guys did that on purpose, but I'm taking those points off because other teachers will get you in a lot of trouble if you do that. So this is one of the most important things we're learning here. Another important thing is to make sure that anytime that you use an author's own words, that you're putting it in quotes. And this was a mistake that someone made where they copy-pasted a bunch of information from their authors. They cited them, so I know where it came from, but they didn't put it in quotes, and it stands out like a sore thumb. If you were to read this paper, you would be like, well, that doesn't sound right. Make sure you're not doing that. Make sure you're giving credit to the actual author, that this is their words. And the way you do that, again, where did our example go? You put it in actual quotation marks like this. This is this author's own words. This is Sophie Breeze's actual words that she said. And we put it in quotes so that we know that it was her. If you're not doing that, it costs you a lot of points, but they'll be easy to fix. You just need to go back, find those quotes, and put them in quotes. Okay, so, yeah. And every paragraph needs a piece of evidence. That's another thing. If you have your intros and conclusions don't, but your body paragraphs, every one of them is arguing for one of your points, and every one of them needs a piece of evidence that's coming from somewhere else, somewhere that isn't you. You can know all of this information, but if you are citing it in your paper, it needs to be cited from somewhere else to show that you're getting that from somewhere. Yeah, and that will cost you a lot of points. The main way that people lost points, if you turned in a paper with no sources in it, then you got a 50, because it's not actually a research paper then. So you need to go back and add sources to each one of your paragraphs, like this one here. Okay. A few more things. One thing that got people in a lot of trouble was having bad thesis statements. Your thesis statement needs to be saying, it needs to say, this is true and this is why. It needs to say, like in this case it said, through the use of empowering female leads, not relying on sequels and dreamy whimsical art that leaves the viewer wanting more, there should be a comma there, Studio Ghibli is better than Disney. So she's given us these 3 different points here that are telling us why Studio Ghibli is better than Disney, and she's giving us her argument as well. And each one of these points is going to be the main idea of one of these paragraphs. So if we look down here, empowering female leads in Studio Ghibli films breaks society's stereotype and often sexist roles. So that is talking about this part here. And this whole paragraph here is going to be about empowering female leads and how they showed up in these movies. So your thesis needs to have all of that. If it doesn't, then you probably wrote a really confusing paper, and it was probably really hard to write because you were just trying to put information together until you got to 1,000 words. Having a good thesis like this one here will guide you through your paper and tell you what to write, so you don't have to think about it too much. Your thesis might be this one also. Let's see. Okay, misspelled profession. I have COVID, it's fine. Nurses should be paid more. That's the thing I'm going to argue here. And I said because they work very hard, they're quitting the profession, and we need them to live. So I can tell from looking at this thesis that this would be the main idea of my paper. And then I'm going to have a paragraph about how hard they work, a paragraph about them quitting the profession, and a paragraph about how important they are. So those aren't the only paragraphs you need to have in here. You also need to have a counter-argument paragraph. Our sample here has this one. People who disagree that Studio Ghibli is the best may claim that Disney is superior based solely on how well known it is. Okay. So she doesn't mention this point in her thesis because it's not one of her points. She's not arguing it. But she's going to argue against this person. And so in this paragraph, she's going to have evidence from her opponents as well as evidence from herself. Here she has, first of all talking about how successful Disney is and how popular they are and how well known they are and how many billions of dollars they made, right? But then down here she's going to talk about how much better Ghibli films are than them, and she has evidence from David Eldridge here talking about why. So she has evidence up here that's coming, that's about Disney being great, and then she has evidence down here proving that that's not the only, money isn't all that matters or whatever, right? Your paper needs at least one of these paragraphs in it too. You should have 6 paragraphs at least altogether, maybe 5 if you write a lot. So an intro, a conclusion, 3 supporting paragraphs generally, and 1 of these counter-argument paragraphs where you explore your opponent's side. Those are all vital parts. Each of the body paragraphs, the 3 supporting ones, and this one all need to have evidence in them. If you didn't have that, then that's costing you a lot of points too. If you didn't have this kind of paragraph, then it's costing you a lot of points. Make sure that your topic sentences match your thesis statement. Some people had topic sentences that were like, there are many health problems in the world today. And that doesn't tell me anything about why nurses need to be paid more. That's being very vague. That's like the first line you would have in a bad introduction. What you want to do instead is be direct and tell me first, what is that point about? So nurses should be paid more because they work very, very hard is a better example for that. A better example of a topic sentence. If you're just writing, many people like to watch cartoons, and then you follow it up with all of this, that's a bad topic sentence because it's not telling me what you're writing about. And also it's not telling you what you're writing about. It's not going to guide you through that paragraph the way that it needs to. Make sure your quotes aren't too long. Some people had quotes that were like half of their paragraphs, and a lot of this needs to come from you and needs to be your own ideas. You can have big quotes if it's really important. There was one where I said it was okay, but they just had to cite it right. But if you can cut it down and put stuff in your own words, do that. And make sure that you're following up with explanation from you. Also, make sure that you have 1 point per paragraph. This goes along with the topic sentence thing. If I'm writing about Studio Ghibli, then one of these is going to be about empowering female leads, and that's all that paragraph will be about. Another one of these will be about how Disney relies on sequels and Studio Ghibli doesn't, and another one will be about the dreamy artwork, right? Each one of these needs to be its own paragraph and talk about its own thing. If you're talking about everything at once, you're not going to actually cover anything enough. And you're not going to make a good argument. A good argument needs to explore each individual part of it, instead of trying to do everything at the same time. Okay, I think that's everything. If you have any questions, send me a message on Blackboard or an email, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. I'm not going to do an ask a question about your draft thing this time, but if you do have questions, just shoot me an email. djameson@kilgore.edu. Alright, stay healthy, good luck. I'll see you guys, I guess, on Wednesday.